This is the Marketing for Learning podcast, the only podcast in the world committed to enabling and empowering the capabilities of L&D through marketing. It's quite possibly the best podcast you'll ever listen to today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. Sorry, we've had a hiatus. You know us. We're not always the most consistent with these podcasts. Thanks for bearing with us. We are doing our best to share our knowledge as and when we can. So, what on earth am I talking about today? Well, I have a little bit of a rant brewing, and I do apologize in advance for this, but it's something that keeps on emerging with client conversations that I'm having. I'm doing quite a lot of big strategic projects with organizations at the moment from campaign branding perspective. And I've had a lot of discovery sessions as a consequence of that and spoken to, quite a few different individuals across multinational enterprise organizations. And when we come back and talk about marketing and what L&D is doing from a comms and a marketing perspective, the same things seem to be emerging over and over and over again. And the biggest one is this events-focused marketing that I see most of L&D do. And I don't mean events like we're going to go to the next webinar or an exhibition or a conference. I mean an event, i.e. an occasion occurring, such as a new program launch, or a new platform launch, or a new content library, whatever it might be, an event. So when we are doing communications in L&D, we typically do them in this very program-oriented way, and it's driving me wild. And let me tell you why. When we just approach marketing on an ad hoc basis, i.e. we have this thing that we want to promote, and then we do a bit of activity around that, and then we disappear again and we don't do any other comms. This inconsistent way of doing marketing, whilst yes, will get some traction over none, doing something is of course better than nothing when it comes to communications, but it's never going to actually get us like really big results. We're never going to move the needle significantly because it's, people forget easily, and so when we're just kind of like darting into their inboxes or on their intranet or in their in-mails or their managers start talking about something and then we disappear again, it's gone. It's replaced by TikTok or whatever the latest trend is. And we need to think a little bit bigger picture. We need to stop focusing just on these specific instances for marketing, and we need to think more on almost like on a brand level, if you want to look at it like that. How do we sell the idea of learning without directly relating it to specific learning interventions that we've got? A lot of my clients time and time again say, always seems to be leadership programs. Oh, well, we are doing some marketing around our leadership program. And again, I take real issue with just doing marketing on a per program basis. And I'm sure you're going to know why if you've listened to this podcast for a while. Why? Let me tell you. Number one reason why just targeting on a learning program basis from a marketing perspective is problematic is because we are not targeting personas that way. We have reverted back to job titles as a segmentation point. And if you guys have listened to our Personas podcast or the Personas podcast that we did with Elvira Amped from Expedia Group, she talks a lot about personas. She was on our masterclass and learned pretty much how to do them the way a marketer would. If we are just using a structured data point like job title to target our people, we're already setting our marketing and communications efforts up to fail. Our marketing for learning has failed before it started because we know nothing about these people. Oh my God, they're a leader in a business. Well, so what? That doesn't mean anything. They might have a team of 25 and be absolutely under it. They might be someone who has one. What about aspiring leaders? Do they not want to know about the program and something they could potentially get on if they do X, Y, and Z? We cannot target people using job titles. I mean, we can, but it will not be effective because we are not understanding who they are as people. You know, we just did our personas workshop in the masterclass this week, and I talked a lot about, you know, again, those emotional drivers. You know, we need to answer that, what's in it for me? And we cannot do that if the only thing we know about the person is what job they do. I don't know about you guys, but like, that's not like part of my like identity. Like, yeah, I've run a business. Yeah, I've been a marketer for 10 years. That's who I am. That's what I do, but it's not who I am, you know, and it's not necessarily what drives me to take action. You know, like, actually, I'm a mother. I have a son. I need to pay for our house, and we need to eat. I need to pay for him to go to childminder. And I understand that there's an ironic snake eating its tail. Like, I wouldn't need to pay for childminder if I didn't work, blah, blah, blah. But the reason I work, you know, and why I'm motivated to go to work might be really different to, say, Hannah. You know, she's in a different scenario. She's going to get married, so she's saving for her wedding. So there's, you know, different motivators there. So we can't use job title to segment people. So when it just drives me crazy when I'm talking to clients and other L&D practitioners, and they're saying, oh, we do marketing, and it's always focused on leadership programs for some reason. But that is not going to be useful for us. And the second reason that if we just are doing marketing on a job title or programmatic basis, the reason that's not going to work also is because it doesn't give us a long scale view of how we actually change hearts and minds. Because if I'm being quite honest, marketing for learning kind of washes over into this change management piece that a lot of us are looking at. You know, how do we actually shift learning culture? How do we shift the culture of our business to even be a learning culture? How do we get the tops of our organization to cascade that downwards? You know, how do we actually get people to want to prioritize learning? If we're just doing ad hoc campaigns that are targeted at very specific audience cohorts, whilst I understand the logic that, well, this is segmentation. You told me to do segmentation, Ashley. Yes, I have. But please don't do it on a job title basis or a learning program basis. The other reason is because if you're starting with the learning program, you've started with a learning need as a reason to do marketing. And again, that absolutely misses the mark when it comes to your learners. So if we've built this leadership program, we want to develop our people, let's email all our leaders and get them on it. Right. Again, well, why do they care? Why should they care? You know, what's the value for them? It doesn't allow us to be as segmented as we should be. So what I would suggest is, if you do have an upcoming program of some kind or an event of some kind that you do want to promote in your organization, if you are absolutely steadfast that you want to just specifically focus on that, at least take some time to more deeply understand the audience cohort that you are trying to target within that program. Make sure that when you're building out your communications, that you're talking about wants, needs, desires, pain points, emotional drivers, digging out that stuff from the cohort, rather than, hey, you're a leader, so you should probably want to do this or be interested in it, or at least want to hear from us about it. They don't, and they're not going to do anything about it if unless you sell it to them. Because, ultimately we're in the business of influence here in marketing, and as a consequence, so are you guys. So please, I implore you to take a pause next time someone very senior comes and tells you that we need to promote this. We need to get people to sign up for this. We've invested $200,000 in this program and no one's taking it. Okay. But I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on understanding my audience first, because if I just start doing marketing to everybody, you don't understand the what's in it for me. Therefore, your positioning is going to be wrong. Your messaging is going to be wrong. You're not going to be able to tell the right stories. You're not going to be able to actually connect with people on a level that's going to actually get them to move their butts. So that is a 9-minute moan about a conversation I've had about 10 times in the past 6 weeks. And really just wanted to say, you guys are doing a great job. You're wanting to segment. I love that. But don't cherry pick what I'm saying here around segmentation. What's more important is understanding your audiences on that emotional level. The demographics, the geographical data, that stuff is something that should add texture and color to your personas. It shouldn't be the primary driver for them. Thanks so much for listening, guys. As always, thanks for your patience with me and Han. We're not always super consistent with releasing this, but it is just the two of us, and we're doing our best to do everything that we can. If any of you guys are in London, I'm actually at the LPI Learning Live Networks event on December 7th. I'm going to be talking about marketing for learning. We've got kind of an interactive live session. There's drinkies, lots of snacks, and it should be quite a good session. So if you are a LPI member and want to come, then, you can probably sign up somewhere on their website, or I will find the link and put it in the show notes, or ping me on LinkedIn and I'll see what I can do. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for joining me for my rant. I'll speak to you guys soon. Bye. Marketing for learning. It's actually now a thing.